Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurial Athlete, the show where former and current athletes learn how to dominate the game of business just like you did in sports. I'm your host. My name is Felicia, and I'm a former Division I basketball player turned business owners where I specialize in helping other business owners save time and increase their revenue with tailored AI marketing systems. And today, y'all, we have a special guest, Dr. David Walker, and he's a distinguished speaker. Distinguished speaker and authority on developing the championship mindset, and he transforms high potential individuals and extraordinary leaders. So, welcome, Dr. Walker. I'm excited to have you on the pod today. And I like to ask my guests this one question to kick things off. So, when you think back, right, of your time being an athlete, what's one lesson or just a mindset shift from sports that you still apply to now in business?
Well, Felicia, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on the show. This is truly an honor to be here and to share some knowledge and to empower your audience to be what I call champions. As you can see, I got on my shirt because I believe in living life like a champion. But to answer your first question, I think the one thing that I have taken from my athletic days, my athletic career, although it was a while ago, I have taken the mindset of resilience. You know, when you're an athlete, anything can happen on the field. And matter of fact, you're a basketball player. Just heard some news the other day about the top athlete out in USC, Juju Watkins, I think is her name, and she tore an ACL. I mean, she's an all-star player, and you know, what athlete thinks that that's going to happen to them? And I remember reading someone giving her some encouragement as to say, yes, it happened to you. You're going to have to deal with it, but now your main focus is to come back better. And that's right in line with being resilient. And I think when you're going from athletics into business, there is no greater a fundamental principle than the principle of resilience, because as an athlete and in business, everything is not going to work out the way you want it to. But the question is, are you going to hang in there? Are you going to stick with it? Are you going to be determined to win at whatever it is that you're trying to do? So that's the word that I would say that I have transferred from the athletic field into the business community.
Absolutely. I think resilience is so important, right? Because of course, you use resilience when you get injured. Like you said, Juju Watkins got injured. How are you going to bounce back from that, right? There are moments where you're on the field, you're on the court, and you might lose by 2 points, 1 point. You know, it's that very tight game and you just end up losing. Well, what's that next game going to look like for you, right? So I love that. Resilience is so important because in business, there are going to be so many moments, let's be real, so many moments where that has to kick in or you're just going to give up. And it's easy to do that. But I truly believe that athletes have those foundational skills because of what we've endured as athletes. So that's a solid point that you brought up. And so I want to learn more about you. First, being an athlete. What sport did you play?
I was a baseball player.
Okay. Did you start out was that like your very first sport that you played and you just stuck with it?
Yeah. I grew up in a community known as Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, New York. And, maybe your audience may or may not be familiar with Bed-Stuy, but Bed-Stuy is the home of Biggie and Jay-Z and Chris Rock and Lenny Kravitz. There's some others. I can list a whole long name of them, but these are all people who came out of this place that I grew up known as Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. And there was a tagline. It was known as Bed-Stuy Do or Die. And of course, we had to overcome a lot of challenges and things like that. But I fell in love with the game of baseball. Oh, before I move forward, since I am talking of Bed-Stuy, there is one other name that I have to say that came out of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Matter of fact, we went to the same high school, and it's someone who played on the Syracuse campus by the name of Dwayne Pearl Washington. You know that name, don't you?
Oh my goodness. Hold up. I feel like I'm getting challenged here.
Oh, there it is. Come on, come on. Syracuse University, Dwayne Pearl Washington.
Pearl sounds so familiar. Wait,
Oh, look.
what sport? What sport?
Basketball, basketball, basketball. Oh, your Syracuse
Look, now
alumni
I
is
feel like I
on.
gotta Google now. Now I have to Google him.
Dwayne Pearl Washington is probably next
Okay.
to Derek Coleman
Hmm.
and
Yep.
I think Donovan McNabb might have played at Syracuse, but
Okay.
Dwayne
Yep.
Pearl Washington, look him
No.
up.
Okay.
Came out of Boys and Girls High School in Brooklyn, New York,
Hmm.
Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
Okay.
Played at Syracuse University. He was a legend. And so anyway, um, baseball was my game. I love sports. I love all kinds of sports, but I just had this knack for the game of baseball because I wasn't a big fella. You know, I couldn't play no football because I wasn't big enough. Basketball, I was too short. So baseball was the game where the gifts that God gave me, I was able to utilize them in the game of baseball, and I loved it. And it took me right into college, and so that was the sport that I played, baseball.
I love that. Okay. So baseball was your sport, and like you said, you pretty much knew early on that's what you wanted to do. Now, was it always your goal that you were going to get maybe a scholarship, go into college, and then even go play pro as well?
You know, pros was always the goal. You know, one of these, as a young kid, we all want to play in the major leagues. But when it comes to going to college, I grew up where unfortunately my mom my dad dropped out of high school in the 10th grade, and my mom, she did get her high school diploma, but we never had a kitchen table talk about higher ed, going to college. And so because that conversation never happened, I kind of meandered through high school, not focused on going to college because there was no conversations about it.
Right.
And barely got out of high school. And I had even and let me just say this: I never took the SATs and never went on a college tour. I graduated high school, and I didn't even know what I was going to do. But my goal was to get out of high school. So I got out of high school, and that summer of my high school year, after graduating, I was playing in a summer baseball league. And while I was out there, the game was over. This gentleman comes up to me and he taps me on the shoulder. He says, "Hey, man, I like the way you play. You're very talented." Then he introduces himself by saying, "My name is Michael Hipsher, and I'm the head baseball coach of Brooklyn College." And then he asked me a question, Felicia, that no one had ever asked me for the first 18 years of my life. He asked me, "Where are you going to college?"
Oh wow.
Now, you know, I'm not racist or anything like this. He was happened to be a Caucasian man,
Hmm.
and I took the look at this Caucasian man, wondering who's this Caucasian man asking me where am I going to college, right?
Right.
And so of course I looked at him and said, "Nowhere. I'm not going to college." So then he says, "Well, I like your talent. You got some talent. I'm the head baseball coach at Brooklyn College." Here's what he said: "How would you like to come to Brooklyn College and you can play on the baseball team?" But let me repeat what he said. "How would you like to come to Brooklyn College and you could play on the baseball team?" Let me tell you what I heard. "How would you like to come and play on the baseball team?"
Right. Hey, just real quick, I know you're watching the episode, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I gotta put you on game to something that is going to be huge for former athletes stepping into entrepreneurship. If you're a former athlete, you're looking to build or scale your business, you need to be in my school community. And I promise you, it's not going to be just some regular online group, but it's literally a network of all of us, former athletes who get what it's like transitioning from sports into business. And what that group is going to be called, Entrepreneurial Athlete. And I promise we know, right? We know what it's like in sports, right? You have teammates and you can level up together. And that's exactly what this community is going to be about. And so inside, you'll find some great stuff, networking opportunities with other athletes. You get expert insights, not only from myself, but from the great podcast guests that you are watching. You also get collaboration opportunities. It could be for building your brand or even getting some type of referrals or anything like that to grow your business. And then also exclusive events and trainings, not just virtual, but also in person as well. So check me out, check out the link of the community. You do not want to miss it. It's going to be down in the description below.
Because he was offering me an opportunity to continue to play the game that I had loved because college, my high school career is over. And he's saying, come play baseball. Right. So lo and behold, I found myself in college. I'm on the team. And of course, I can go over my journey and talk about academic, how unprepared I was. Mm-hmm. But finally, I stuck with it. And I went on. And by the time I got to my senior year, I had started to develop talents. And finally, believe it or not, my talents had developed to the point where I got a letter from the Los Angeles Dodgers inviting me to come and try out for the baseball team.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
I want to, before we get to there, I want to really dive into your college career because you did say you might have matured a lot during that time, right? Mm-hmm. And so break it down where, because you said that, let's start with academics. It could be, I want to also break down your sports as well and how that was, because I know for me, I looked at my sport as all I wanted to do is play basketball, right? Mm-hmm. Like I did play, I did okay. I was a very average student, excuse me. Mm-hmm. I was a very average student. And it was a little bit intimidating because my mom always excelled in academics, always. She would tell me that, it never came easy to her, but to me, it looked like it did from the outside looking in. Okay. I always had to work, had to put in a lot of time to at least get a decent grade, which is a B, right? So for me, basketball was just my focus because it came a little bit easier. I'm not saying that I never worked hard, but it was easier. Mm-hmm. So for you, where you also focus on baseball, going into college, how was that like? Because I mean, academics in college is a different level. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah, well, I was totally unprepared for college. Matter of fact, I had to do my very first year. I had to go through a year of remedial courses in order to get prepared to go into the main street. But what happened was because I was considered a full-time student in terms of hours, not in terms of credit, but in terms of hours, that allowed me to play on the baseball team in my first year. Well, I was on the team ever since the beginning, but that first year was a whole lot of remedial courses until I finally had to learn some things. And then eventually I matriculated somewhere around my second or third year. So I'm on the team. I play in my first year and I'm in my second year. And guess what? By the end of my second year, I end up on the academic dean's list.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I'm sure when I say that it's the dean's list you think is for good kids, but actually I was on the academic dean's list and he called me into his office and he said to me, Walker, your grades are terrible. Oh. He said, your grades are terrible. And then this is what he said to me. He says, listen, if you don't get yourself together and get your grades together, we're going to throw you out of school.
Oh, wow.
Well, let me say it again what he said to me. He says, if you don't get those grades together, we're going to throw you out of school. Well, let me tell you what I heard. If you don't get those grades together, we're going to throw you off the baseball team. So that's what I heard. I heard, wait a minute. You're telling me if you throw me out of school, you're going to throw me off the team. Yep. And because of that, it began to set in to say, hey, you can't play if you're not getting your grades together.
Mhm.
And I began to change my mindset to say, hey, I got to go to class. I can't be hanging out. I got to study. I got to get into a study group. And eventually I say this, eventually I learned how to learn.
Mhm.
Eventually I understood what it meant to be a student athlete.
Right.
It was difficult, it was challenging. And ultimately, as time went along, I'm getting better grades, because I had to stay eligible.
Right.
And I did stay eligible. I met the requirements. Um, but it was a challenge. So I was a much better student as I went, towards the end of my bachelor's, and then when I went on to higher ed and advanced degrees, then the B's and the A's started coming. But that
Yeah.
first year, man, I was D and F specialist.
That is so funny. Okay. And how was it playing at the next level, right? Was it the same experience or were
Yeah.
you just killing it as soon as you stepped out on the field?
No, now actually, the school that I played at was a Division III school. And it was the only offer that I had. That gentleman who came, he said, come to my college. That was the only place that I went
Mhm.
because he said, come. So I didn't go to any school. I didn't try out. Again, there were no scholarship opportunities, nothing. And unfortunately, but so I played there, and it took me a minute to develop my skills. Um, but I had talent because I had certain skills. I was a very fast runner. I was a base stealer. I started out as a second baseman because I was second baseman in high school, second baseman my first 2 years of college. But by the time I got to my senior year, I ended up moving out to center field. And in baseball, your center fielder is generally your most athletic player, your fastest player, because he's got to cover a whole lot of ground from the center field.
Okay.
And so, I eventually developed my talents, and I was a student of the game. I would study players and, go to trainings and what do you call those things that athletes go to develop their skills? Camps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of those things, because at some point, I was really focused on getting better. I wasn't focused on trying to go to the major leagues. I was just focused on being the best player that I could. But then at some point in time, you started hearing conversation about, Walker having pro talent.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So now you have pro talent. Your name is in the pro conversation.
Hmm.
And so now you get invited to play at the LA Dodgers. How
Yes.
was that experience for you?
Well, as you can imagine, when I got that letter, I was thrilled. I was overjoyed. I was excited because when you grow up in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, we all wanted to become what we call a living legend, meaning that you wanted to do something that took you out of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And no doubt, Biggie is a living legend, Jay, living legend, Tracy Morgan, Chris Rock. They were all living legends because everybody knows about them. But for me, being a living legend was through the game of baseball. And when I got that letter was telling me that my dream of possibly becoming a professional athlete was about to come to pass. Yeah. And the story ends up going like this, if you would allow me.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I get the letter and very excited, got an opportunity to try out. I'm in my senior year and I only have about 2, 3 weeks left of the season in my final year of eligibility. I get the letter inviting me, and the tryout would have probably been just a few days after the season. So, in the final couple of weeks of the season, I remember playing in the game and I got a base hit. And so now I'm on first. Now, remember, I was a Division III athlete. I wasn't big, I wasn't strong. But the one thing that the Dodgers was looking for that I had, that was speed. I was a base stealer. When I got on base, I'm wreaking havoc. I'm stealing second, I'm stealing third. I had pro speed. And that's what they liked. They said, this is a guy who, when he gets on base, he's going to make things happen. That was the way I played And if you got any baseball people in your audience, which I'm sure you do, like the Ricky Hendersons, some of the current players like Mookie Betts, when they get on base, they're running and stuff like that. So I'm in the game. I'm on first now. I steal second base because that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that year, that was my 37th stolen base in 22 games.
Wow.
So statistically, that's a steal and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I was leading the nation in steals. So I steal second base. And so now I'm on second base, and my team gets a base hit to the outfield. And I'm dashing around third, coming home as hard as I can, trying to score a run for my team. And there's a play at home plate, right? There's a play at home plate. I'm trying to score. There's a play at home plate. The throw was high. The catcher jumps up in the air to catch the ball. And as I go to put my foot on home base, the weight of the catcher comes down and breaks my leg.
Mm. Okay.
Sometimes when I think about it, it really hits me, even these many years later. And as you can imagine, I was rolling on the dirt, screaming, hollering, my leg, right? My leg.
Yeah.
And I finally got a chance to look at my leg, and I knew what had happened.
Mm.
I knew that I wasn't going to make that trial.
Yeah.
I knew that my baseball career was over. And as you can imagine, as I was laying on the ground, I felt sad and depressed and angry and disappointed. And why? Because not only was my leg broken, but my dreams were shattered. It was shattered right there on the field. And I knew it was over. But as I laid there, trying to get my thoughts together, trying to get my emotions together, I remember thinking that I am experiencing what you call a defining moment. It's been said that when a defining moment comes, either you define the moment or the moment will define you. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, I have to define this moment. I can't let this setback get the best of me. And of course, I got up, I went, I rehabbed my leg, I came back to school. And here's something interesting that I don't really always talk about. But when I came back to school to finish my degree, which I did, but it took me another 2 years to finish because I had such a late start.
Okay.
Right. And most athletes, when their playing career is over or their professional opportunity is over, most of them check out.
Right.
They drop out of school. But I came back 2 more years to make sure that I finished because I was determined that I was going to finish that degree. I wasn't going to let that setback keep me from finishing. And 2 years later, I came back. I earned my bachelor's degree. I went into education. I became a teacher. Then I was a school principal. I ultimately was a pastor for a number of years. And then finally, check this out. I referee NCAA basketball.
Wow.
Yep. Big East ball. 25 years I referee NCAA basketball. And I say that because I had that setback. And that's why I talk about a couple of things. I talk about resilience, being a champion. I talk about drive, dedication, and determination. Because when I look at that setback that I had of breaking my leg and how I overcame that, and then when I look at what I have now becomes, here's what I say: I win. I'm a champion because I didn't let the setback get the best of me, even though my dream was shattered. Right. I said, then I got to make something else of my life. So I don't look back at it with a great deal of disappointment that I didn't make it to the major leagues. I say champions don't always get exactly what they want. The question is, what are you going to do about it when that setback comes?
100%. Yeah.
When that challenge comes, when that broken leg comes, when that ACL gets torn or bicep tear, whatever it is, what happens to you when that thing happens to you? Are you going to come back from it, or are you just going to lay there on the ground? No, I got up, dusted myself off, and then I had to make something else of my life.
And I wonder, did that come naturally to you, though? I know you said it sounded like it was very quick, right? You said you laid there and all the things, and I love that you didn't allow it to define you negatively.
Yeah.
Um, but um, but why did it come so naturally to you though? Like, did you have people around you that had that same mindset? Like, were you pumping yourself up with just positive thinking?
Yeah.
What helped you get there?
Well, actually, I'm going to give my grandmother credit at this point, my grandma Martha.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to understand it, I really got to go back to when I was born. You see, I was born in March of 1960,
Mm-hmm.
right? And of course, that means the end of this month, March 31st, I will be 65
Oh
years
yeah,
old.
it didn't even click. Happy
Yeah,
early
yeah,
birthday.
yeah. So I'll be the big 6'5" in just a couple more days. But in March of 1960, there were no sonograms.
Mhm.
There were no gender reveal parties that we know of today where you would know the gender of the baby. My mother was pregnant with me and she didn't know my gender. But here's what she did, her and my father. They decided that if I was a boy, they were going to name me Michael. And my mom went around telling all of her girlfriends, my boy's going to be named Michael. My boy's going to be named Michael. I think my mom thought I was going to be an angel.
Mm.
But no, Mom, I wasn't going to be no angel. But anyway, my mom comes to my grandma Martha, and when she tells her, she says, "Mom, if I have a second son, I've got an older brother, Robert." She says, "If I have another son, we've decided to name him Michael." But after my grandma Martha heard that news, she turns to my mother, she looks her directly in her eye, and she says, "His name is David."
Mm.
Because in the Bible, David was a king, David killed Goliath, and David was a great man. And my grandson will be named David, and he will be a great man.
Wow.
Felicia, I love my grandmother. I love her.
Wow.
Why? Because that story tells me that my grandmother saw me as a winner, an overcomer, and a champion.
Right.
My grandmother is the one who set me up with the mindset of the biblical character David, who overcame giants.
Right.
But she was telling me that your life is going to be filled with having to overcome obstacles, and I want you to be prepared for it. So
Yes.
when an obstacle comes, it's already built in to say you have to overcome this giant obstacle in order to win. And if you want to win, you got to get past it.
Yes.
So I'm going to give grandma the credit, even though I listen to a lot of motivational speakers, Les Brown and
Mm-hmm.
others who do inspire me, who do lift me up. But I always got to go back to grandma.
Yeah.
Grandma said, "You're going to be a giant slayer." And so because of that, I live my life understanding it. I wake up every day knowing that I'm a champion, that I'm going to win. And doesn't matter, as they say, hell or high waters, I'm coming through it and I'm going to get onto the other side.
Yes, I love that. It's something about grandmothers that's just laying the footprint of the rest of the family. I love that. So you've accomplished a lot, right? You were a teacher and a principal. And I know I'm not mentioning everything that you have accomplished, but you have accomplished a lot. And so now, kind of looking into business, what made you go from the classroom and teaching others, being a principal, to stepping into your doing your own thing and growing a business?
Yeah, well, I mean, I retired.
Mhm.
I retired from education. I
Gotcha.
did
Okay.
30 years in New York City. As I said, I was a former pastor.
Yeah.
And when I retired and relocated to Florida, where I now live, Orlando, Florida, I felt like even though I had stepped out of the classroom, stepped out of the school system, and stepped away from the pulpit, I still felt like I had a message. I still felt like God wanted me to still stand in front of people and speak, you know. That's why my website is known as Dr. Walker Speaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to speak, I want to talk, I want to empower, uplift, and most of all, I want to transform lives.
Hmm.
And so because of that, I found out that there was this thing called public speaking where you can become a public speaker and get paid for it, although getting paid is not my primary mission, my primary mission is to solve people's problems.
Right.
You know, what's the problem that you're dealing with? And I want to come and speak to that. So your life can be transformed. And in many ways, that's still preaching, because that's what the preacher does. He changes lives and transforms lives. That's what educators do. They transform lives. And so I went into this profession of public speaking, and I'm learning more and more every day. But here's what I understand, that is that I am the CEO of my company. You know, so even though, you know, I'm kind of like an individual and I don't have a whole building full of people, because it is a business, I'm the CEO, and I have to see it that way and operate it that way, because the rewards of business won't come to me unless I see this as a business.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's how I kind of got into it. I just really kind of started off talking because that's what I like to do. And then I found out that it can be a career, even though I started kind of late. A lot of people that I know have been in it for 20 years, 25 years. I'm really like only 2-3 years in. And so I'm still getting my feet wet, but yet I'm making inroads into the business.
Yeah. But you already have experience, right? Like I feel like you're not starting from like ground zero, essentially, right? Like
Right.
you were a pastor, and you know you have the experience of, like you said, transforming lives. And so yeah, so okay, wow, that's amazing. And so what are the key principles, really, like as you have looked back into your career and things like that, what are like the key principles that kind of help you go forward today and within your speaking career, your speaking business career now?
You know, not too long ago, I sent out a sort of like a survey of a large number of people who knew me. And I was trying to get from them, what is it about me that you know? And people sent me back. I said, send me back at least, 3 responses, right? And of all the people who were part of the survey, and they sent me back things that were speaking about me as they saw it, there were 3 words that came out of it. And I have adopted those 3 words, and I agree with those 3 words, and they are drive, determination, and dedication. And I said, yes, that is me. Drive, determination, and dedication. And so if I was to share with anyone of some tips or something like that, and I mean, there's more, I could always share more, but that's what's coming to my mind right now. Drive, have a drive, a relentlessness about you, that says you're going to persist no matter what. Be determined to win. Don't let obstacles and setbacks keep you from accomplishing your business goals. Be determined to win. And then finally, I said, and dedication. Yeah, you got to dedicate yourself. Part of dedicating yourself is you're not going to always be out in the public. Right? You're not going to always be out in the public, because I share this in my book that I wrote. I call that, in order for you to perfect your skill set, and we know this as athletes, you got to go into the preparation room, right? And the preparation room is not the time when you're on the field.
100%.
Right? It's not the time when you're out in public. The preparation room is usually during the off season, right? Athletes are not better in season. Athletes get better during the off season, right? That's the preparation. And of course, practice can fit in there too, but it's not during the game. So when you see people at their excellence, it's not while they're in the game that you're seeing that they're developing the excellence. They developed it during the off season, during the preparation time, right? And so when you have a drive, dedication, and determination, you understand that you have to build yourself, build your business. Like I said, go into isolation, see what you need, focus on what you need, get the people that you need to help you, because you can't do business by yourself, right? It's a teamwork, it's a collaborative effort. how you develop yourself. And then when you have mastered what you do, when you have become proficient at what you do, when you come on the outside, when you come out into the public, people are going to see it. If I can, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, uh, God God rewards what you do privately. He then rewards you in public.
Yes.
So when people see your public greatness, that means you were working on it in private.
Hmm. I love that. And it really it gets me thinking about uh, the importance of really doing the work even when nobody is watching, right? I
Yes.
think so now because social media is just social media, right? We're always looking and comparing ourselves to the next person. You know, this person has X amount of engagement, likes, views, etc. And we're not really focused on what we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it kind of discourages us or whatever the case may be. And so I want to ask, right, because those are real emotions. Those are valid. And so as we are preparing ourselves, what do you tell the person that has a hard time with, man, like I'm just not seeing the fruit of my labor. Like I've been grinding at this thing for months and maybe even years, but like I see John Blue over here. It looks like he just came up within a few months, but I'm just over here not seeing any type of growth. Like, what do you tell that person?
Yeah. Of course, a scripture comes to mind: "Be not weary in well doing,"
Mhm.
which would say to all of us is that, yeah, some people will have quick growth, but then you also have to ask yourself, is it sustainable? You know, some people rise real quick, but is it sustainable? And if you want to have a long journey in whatever you're doing, be comfortable with seasons of isolation. Be comfortable with seasons where you're not on stage, not out in the public, because sometimes you're really not ready for the spotlight, right? You're really not ready for prime time.
Yes.
Um, and that's how you can separate the great athletes from those that aren't. You know, you put certain people in certain athletic positions, and then they're fumbling the ball, they dropping the ball, they're running the plays wrong. When you talk about sports, why? Because they weren't prepared for the moment. And so, yeah, whether it's a business, where you're trying to make it, and I feel that way sometimes as a speaker. Trust me, I'm trying to get out there, and I see some people, and I see them talking. I say, well, his message is no better than mine. I got a good message, but he out there on stage. And but I'm comfortable with being patient, because when the moment breaks, I'm going to be ready for it.
Yes.
I'm going to be ready. I would rather, for anything in life, to take time, and then when I get there, I stay there, than to come up early, mess up, and then I'm out of the game altogether.
Right.
And that's always a possibility. So if you can just be patient and wait, there's always a blessing in waiting. Develop your skills, develop your craft. And here's something that I want to relate to athleticism, and even in business. One of the things about sports, and it's just about anything in life, there's this thing called conscious and subconscious, right? When things are on the conscious level, you do too much thinking, right? When something is on the subconscious level, there's really no thought to it. And here's the perfect example to it. I'm sure you drive, right? You have a car. When people first learn how to drive, it's always 10 and 2. You check you turn the radio off, no phone, don't talk to me while I'm driving, right? Because you just started and your driving is on the conscious level. So you're consciously thinking about things. But
Yeah.
when your driving gets to the subconscious level, then you get what I call the gangster lean. Yeah, you just lean in, radio playing, you on the phone. You know what I'm saying? You go from point A to point B, and you say, well, how did I get here so fast? You know, did I pass the supermarket? Yeah, you passed the supermarket, but everything is on a subconscious level, so there's really no thought to it. And if I can just relate for athletes for a minute, when your skill set gets to subconscious level, when you come into the game, then you don't feel the pressure, right? You don't feel the pressure. But if it's not on that subconscious level and you just coming in because it's at a conscious level, you're doing too much thinking, you're making too many mistakes. It's the same thing when you get to business. You have to get your proficiency, your business, your skill set down to a subconscious level. And when you get down to a subconscious level, then you will begin to operate out of instinct and knowing where to be and knowing what to do and knowing your customers and knowing the business. You know what I'm saying? I know what I'm doing, but that takes time. It takes time to prepare and to get yourself prepared for that moment.
Yes, amen. And the one thing that came to my mind that I also wanted to add on that is because I'm kind of in the middle of this. You might have one plan for yourself, right? You might want to be on that stage. You might
Yeah.
want to, like for me, I'm in this period of like, I'm trying to decide on going all in on business, kind of I'm in that period right now. So you might think one way, but when I tell you God
Yeah.
has a bigger plan for you, and
Yep.
you don't even know, right? Like you might think it's over here, but when I tell you it's even greater. So I check myself constantly on that when it comes
Hmm.
to like, comparison and all the things there, because it's like, one, like you said, I could be still growing. I need to do my work. I need to focus on me first. But I just don't know. I have no idea what God is planning for me. And it could be bigger than I ever have envisioned for myself. And so that kind of keeps me kind of checked a little bit, kind of knowing that
Yeah.
I have no idea what God has planned for me. And I know that it's probably even going to be bigger than I even imagined and I know that because I've experienced that in other areas in my life, right? That is the reason why that I'm just so confident in that, because there were times where basketball just wasn't it. Like in college, I just didn't see why I was at Syracuse. I mean, it was such a hard time for me. I graduate and then I'm just seeing all of these things just happen in my life that I know it was nobody but God. So, I just wanted to add that little tidbit there because you got to sometimes check yourself on just comparison. I mean, I know it's easy to do that. Still do it to this day, but you just got to kind of check it, put in systems in place. If it's reading the word, if it's just stop praying, or if it's either putting the phone down a little bit, you just
Yeah.
have to put
Yeah.
systems in place where you're not falling down in that rabbit hole. So that's
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
love that. So Dr. Walker, okay. Um, I love your principles because I have a similar way of like just going about life and building business, things like that. And so now when it comes to, I want to hear your thoughts though about a person that um like needs some advice of like they're drained at this point, right? They might be kind of empty and they know that they want to grow the business or a business, but they just don't have like maybe like systems in place, or maybe it's like a certain mindset that they don't have to kind of pull them out of just getting more, like filling their own tank up, right? So how mindset wise, like what can they do to kind of fill their own self and fill their own tank up so that they can kind of push forward with growing their business?
Yeah. I believe that the world that we live in is both uh, physical and spiritual. Um, I don't believe that you can have one without the other. I don't believe that you can have success without the other. You use the phrase, sometimes people are feeling empty. And usually an emptiness is coming from a lack of spirituality, right? And I think that people need to spend more time on spiritual things. Of course, I'm going to always emphasize God. I'm going to emphasize prayer. I'm going to emphasize the right kind of fellowship. Um, and then you talked about putting down social media and TV. You got to put down a lot of things that's detrimental to our spirit because it will dampen it. It will make you feel not like you're alive and things like that. So that spiritual aspect I think is very, very important. And of course, I would always say, put God first. If you're asking me, I'm going to always say put God first. Um, um, I think the scripture says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these righteousness shall be added. Um, then I think, and here's, I also want to say this, and then when it comes to giving and giving out, if you empty, you can't give out. You can't, an empty pitcher can't do anything. So you got to make sure that you're filled. And again, that comes from quiet time, prayer time, and separating us from others. And then, of course, I think you mentioned like systems. You got to get the right kind of systems in place, because success is really about your system. If you don't have the right kind of system, again, whether it's sports or business, it's not going to be as effective. And you want your systems that you employ to operate for you, because a system is just that. It's something that's designed to work consistently for you once you put it into operation. So you don't have to worry about it not working. If you put the system in place, it's going to work better for you and get you some better results in what it is that you're doing.
Yes, yes. Wow, that's amazing. I love that. And Dr. Walker, just kind of wrapping up, because I truly enjoyed this conversation. And honestly, I appreciate all of the stories that you have shared here and with our listeners. But what is one last couple of tips that you can provide to the listeners here that can help them either in the sports side or on the business side?
Yeah. I want to give you what I call my champion mind framework. I believe it might work in this place. It's a 3-step framework that I talk about when I give presentations. So whether you're an athlete, whether you're in business, 3 steps that I believe that will make you a champion, right? Number 1, make room for your gift, right? God gave all of us a gift. Your athletic talent was a gift from God, right? Your business is a gift from God, because whatever your business is, um, the idea came from heaven, right? The idea came from God. So he gave you that business. And what he wants you to understand is that that business is a gift, but it's not a gift for you. Even though it might have your name on it, it's not for you. That gift is for other people. Because what he wants you to do with your gift is solve other people's problems, right? You want your business to flourish, learn how to solve other people's problems, right? And here's what I always say about a gift. A gift is a present, right? You like getting presents, right? Christmas presents, birthday presents. It just changes people's lives. So your gift is designed to be given to someone to change their life, right? So not only is a gift a present, but here's another thing about a gift. A gift should have presence, right? Presence, right? Your gift is supposed to have presence in the community. Your gift is supposed to have presence in other people's lives, because when they feel your presence, their lives change. Their lives get better. Their problems get solved. So God wants the first thing for everyone to do to be a champion is to make room for your gift, because if you make room for your gift will make room for you. Here's the second thing I say: manage your fear. Manage your fear. A lot of people in life want to win, right? 2 things that people don't understand: they want to win, but they don't want an opponent. You can't win in life without an opponent, right? You can't win in life without an opponent. So that's why I always say you got to have obstacles and challenges, because someone is always trying to keep you from getting where you're trying to go. So when I say manage your fear, I need for people to understand that fear is always a part of the process. You're never going to have success without fear going along with you, right? Faith says, I believe that I can do this. But the fraternal twin of faith is fear. They look something alike. They're not born at the same time, but they show up at about the same time. And if people would learn that you're never going to be successful without fear going on the ride with you. I saw this recently where it said that fear is the enemy to my faith. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with fear is the enemy to my faith. I say that fear is the partner to my faith, because you cannot achieve greatness without fear going along with you. Nelson Mandela said that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Will Smith said that God has the best things in life for you on the other side of fear. So if you learn how to manage your fear, you will get the best things out of life, because fear and faith are partners in your success. Here's the last thing that I want to share with you is that I need for you to maintain your advantage. Somebody said, Dr. Walker, we talk about maintaining my advantage. God has given all of us an advantage to win. And what is that advantage? That advantage is the life that you've lived, the experiences that you have, what you have gone through, regardless of what the experience is, whether you didn't have a father in your life, single mom raised you, you grew up in poverty, come from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. I don't care what your life is. If you see things as a disadvantage, that's what they will be. They will always tell you you can't because of what happened. But I want you to flip that and say, what I went through is my life's advantage, because I have experiences. I know this, I went through that. I know how to handle this. It was hard, it was difficult. I understand certain things from life, and that is my advantage. So I say, maintain it. Don't look at it as though my world is over. No, win with it. Whatever has happened to you is your success, or I should say your formula for success, because that is your experience. So number one, make room for your gift. Number two, manage your fear. And number three, maintain your advantage, and you will be a champion.
Ooh, I'll just cut that piece out, and that could be the podcast right there. That's a whole message. Oh my goodness. Wow. So that's awesome. I love that, Dr. Walker. And so where can they like learn more about you, like your speaking engagement, if someone wants to have you at their location?
Yeah, you can reach me on my website. It's drwalkerspeaks.com. I'll repeat that, drwalkerspeaks.com. And on the website, you'll read all about me, my bio, my mission. There'll be links for you to book me as a speaker. You can book me as a clarity call. You can book me for that if you want to talk. Also, you can get my book. The name of my book, you can see it in the background. It's called The Champion's Mind: How to Defeat Giants and Win. And you can get all of that right on my website at drwalkerspeaks.com. And if you want to reach me through social media, you can get me at Dr. David M. Walker. That's Dr. David M. Walker on all social media platforms.
All right. Okay. And I will definitely make sure that's in the description as well. So you all, again, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Walker, for being on this show. And for the listeners, if you got any value from this episode, please make sure that you just subscribe, right? How can we bring wonderful guests like Dr. Walker? We need your support. That helps us bring more wonderful guests. Share with another athlete turned entrepreneur as well, and comment down below. And this conversation right here, I know that is going to bring you all more value into your life. And so let us hear all about it in the comments. Make sure that you follow him on all his social media platforms and check out his websites. I will also make sure that your book is listed as well. And so I do want to say thank you again, Dr. Walker. And for the listeners, we will check you all in the next episode.
Thank you.